One. Okay, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for this edition of Facebook Live. We're on today, and really glad to be joined with Congresswoman Jackie Walorski from Indiana's 2nd Congressional District. Congresswoman, how are you today?
Oh, I'm very well. Thanks so much for the invite. I couldn't wait to have a chance to talk to you today, so here we go. Thanks so much.
Perfect, thank you. We were chatting as we were logging into Zoom, and when it comes to the federal government and some of the proposals going through the system right now, we could be talking for hours. But for 30 minutes, I just want to dive in on infrastructure a little bit and walk through the current proposals, some of the things that you're seeing as our elected representative, and some of the things that us as activists can do to help be part of that conversation. So I guess my first question is this: when you look at the infrastructure proposal in all its totality, how much of that is actually on traditional infrastructure like roads and bridges and things that we would commonly refer to as infrastructure?
Yeah, so thanks so much, Ryan. Your listeners will not be surprised when I say only 5%. 5% of what is in that infrastructure bill is actually infrastructure as defined by common sense kinds of things that we're all used to, like roads and bridges. And in this case, one of the things that we learned from COVID is the need for federal internet broadband. And those are the kinds of things that we normally talk about. And Indiana does really well in leading the way on really smart infrastructure, common sense kinds of things. And, these talks at the federal level need to be bipartisan, but they're not. And nothing else has been either. And so when you talk about a $2 trillion Biden Pelosi plan spending 5% on those kinds of things, it begs the question, well, where's the rest of that money going? That is a massive amount of money. We don't talk in billions anymore like we did in the last administration. We are now talking trillions. And it seems like every single time we talk about spending, no matter what it's on, it's trillions. So, they're spending more money on electric vehicles than on federal broadband that we found it will be a breakthrough for health in this country and for virtual schooling if we ever need that again. They're spending $200 billion to make buildings energy efficient. Well, I think your listeners for sure know that energy efficient means rules and regulations that cost a massive amount of money on the consumer and the folks that are actually investing in infrastructure. It's really the Green New Deal under a camouflage. That's exactly what this is. This is a Green New Deal repackaged, very much a camouflage, and it's the same disguise as it always is. Lots of money, no energy efficiency, no energy independence in this country. So I'm concerned about the provisions that would actually be harmful to workers who choose not to join a union. It raises costs for small businesses and it increases the bottom line for taxpayers. And Ryan, my fear about all the things that we're going to talk about today is that Democrats are raising taxes to pay for every single thing we're going to talk about today. So by next summer, my district's pockets, their left pocket and their right pocket, are going to be doing nothing but paying one tax after another. This is going to end up on the back of a taxpayer.
I think that's a great point, Congresswoman, and I think that you touched on a few things that we can dive into. You mentioned some of the wasteful spending in this proposal. As you've gone through it and as your team has gone through it, what do you think is one thing that is just completely surprising to you that was a major eye roll for being included into a so-called infrastructure package?
Well, I think to me, it's what I just said. How could the Democrats seriously believe that Americans were not going to see the Green New Deal right in the middle of this thing? I mean, wrapped up like a package. All these tax increases, all of the burdens that are going on small business and taxpayers in general. I can't believe that in the middle of all of this, we have the Green New Deal reemerging. And I think that, most Americans have their ears on right now. They understand what happens when the president closed the Keystone Pipeline. 11,000 people were out of work immediately. They understand when gas is over $3 a gallon in the Indiana 2nd District. They understand what that means, that here comes the Green New Deal just with a different disguise. So, Americans are at the table, Ryan. They have their ears on. I mean, they've seen this before. This happened before under Jimmy Carter. This happened under the Obama administration. They know what it looks like. They know what it appears to be. And the American people are rising up. They're not going to take this sitting down.
Congressman, one of the things that you hit on that I think we really need to touch on, especially, as a fellow Hoosier, we've been doing really great work in Indiana from from a labor perspective and from a perspective of individual workers having the freedom of joining a union or not being forced to. And I think that, that leadership on a state by state level is now being tested. What are some of the key points in this infrastructure package that you're seeing around forced unionization and kickback to large labor unions that don't represent the average worker anymore?
Yeah, there's little details in this gigantic bill that a lot of people will never see on the first read, but one of those is that money is delegated to states that are not states that are union states, not states that are right to work. And that's significant. And these projects have that kind of a tag on them as well. So, for those of us in the state of Indiana, and we do transportation really well, infrastructure in our state, and normally it's a great return on investment when you invest in infrastructure. But that caveat about union versus non-union is, doesn't help the state of Indiana for sure. But yet we know how to build, we know how to produce, we know how to take money and make it work for people. We do things like P3 projects, Ryan, which I think are, one of the ways, a common sense way that we can look at this bill is why not get some public-private partnership money? It's not a cure-all, end-all, but it certainly can help shape common sense policy. Let that capital money flow into infrastructure. It doesn't always have to be tax money. Why can't we do what we've done in other parts of the country and tested that, tested it? Let's test it now. I mean, let's get some private capital rolling in there, and let's not put restrictions on who can get these contracts.
I think that's a great point. And as you're listening to Congresswoman Walorski and I, feel free to hit the like button as you're viewing this. And if you want to get involved in our effort, you can text WASTE to 46262. Congresswoman, talk to me a little bit about your statement on Governor Holcomb's recent decision to modify uninsurance or unemployment insurance, and the work that you're doing in Washington to help try to get Hoosiers back to work as well.
Yeah, this has been a disaster the last couple of months as states have opened, and I'm proud of Indiana for opening, one of the first states that opened, and I think our Governor Holcomb has done a phenomenal job. And we opened and our economy is rolling back and we're doing really well, but one of the things that's happened in the last couple of months is there's help wanted signs up everywhere, Ryan, all over this district, the state of Indiana, and the nation. People were getting paid to stay home and employers couldn't get them to come in and work. And so that issue of unemployment falls in the subcommittee that I'm the ranking member of. So it became our jurisdiction to get the message out on get people back to work. So I dropped a bill that would actually pay people a bonus to go back to work. Did a couple of other things that we thought, would definitely help. Then we thought, what? The easiest, quickest, most successful thing we can do is stop this unemployment extension. So in the state of Indiana, you're being paid $17.50 an hour to stay home and not work, plus healthcare, plus all the other COVID resources that are still to flow, but will flow because they've been ear tagged as such. So last Friday, our leadership, McCarthy and Scalise, and the Ways and Means leadership, Kevin Brady and myself, sent a letter out to every Republican governor around the country, asking them to stop the extension of those unemployment benefits from the federal government. Since we sent that letter out, our Governor Holcomb announced on Monday of last week that he would do that. And that's going to be extremely helpful to the employers around my area. There's nobody to hire. And Texas came along as well. So we're going to keep that pressure on. The only way for companies to be able to come back to a level of success is after COVID. I mean, it's hard enough to pull themselves back together and to keep their staff and keep their places running. But we've seen all kinds of companies in big trouble. They can't hire. In fact, they can't even interview, Ryan, when they, put signs up and somebody, comes in and says, oh, I don't really want the job. I'm just filling this out for some agency. There's no hope in that. We just want to get people back to work and focus on the American dream, get COVID in the rearview mirror and go forward in this country.
I think bringing up the small business aspect especially is going to be critical here for how we recover as a state, but also as a country. And, as you're back home in the district and you're talking to those business owners, they have a lot to be concerned about, right? This has probably been the most trying year, in all of our lives for a lot of different reasons. But now coming back to a 1-2 punch of getting their workforce back up to where it needs to be, along with a massive tax increase on the horizon. What are you hearing from those business owners, and how can activists like us at AFP like help amplify their voices to make sure that they're part of this conversation as well?
Sure. One of the things I did to amplify their voice, number one, it's all I heard. It's all I hear in the district. It's clean. There's actual handwritten signs on restaurants that says we're, due to no staff, due to staffing shortage, due to, whatever, we're not open, or we're open 1 day a week, or, we have, limited shifts. That's what we're seeing happening. One of the things that I did through my Ways and Means ranking member status is I hosted a national hearing from all of our Ways and Means members on the committee, and we all brought somebody to the table. We did it on Zoom, and we all brought somebody to the table from our districts that talked about what's happening in their companies. And one of the guys that I brought in was from Argus, Indiana. He ran an insulation company, and he said, I've got, all my trucks are in my driveway. There's nobody to drive the trucks. So there's nobody to provide the service when somebody needs insulation, or, it's no different whether you're a mom and pop, 2-3 employees, or if you're an RV company with 3,000 employees, there's no difference. If you don't have the workers, you don't have what it takes to be able to survive. And we've seen businesses close just in the last couple of months, literally cannot hire. I've never seen anything like it, Ryan, to see these handmade signs. I was at a restaurant last night going through a drive-through, and they still can't open the inside of that restaurant, and there's a sign on the outside, due to lack of staff, we literally cannot open, please go to the drive-through.
Wow, it's a place that I don't think any of us have been in, certainly in my lifetime. And I think that, from our perspective, and hopefully, you're certainly with us on this, right? Let's put the power back in the hands of the individuals, and give them the agency to fulfill their life and get back on track. What are some things that we can do on the ground to help in this effort? If you're looking to get involved, certainly hit the like button, text WASTE to 46262. But from your end, as someone who represents a large portion of our state, what are some things that we can do that are going to be most impactful to help try to curb the proposal, like the current infrastructure proposal going through Congress?
Well, I think you can certainly lean into your elected officials, and, for those listening that are not from Indiana, lean into your governors for sure. Every governor has the choice right now to either leave those federal unemployment insurance benefits on, or they can take them off. And I'll tell you, if we don't take them off, we're going to be looking at a collapse of our labor market the way it is. We're in a labor shortage. And it was just really interesting, if you look at the Biden administration and how oppressive the rules and regulations that they're putting out with the increase in taxes, inflation right now, Ryan, is going through the roof. And I know your folks know this as well, but, whether you're looking at milk in a grocery store, or you're looking at meat and beef and those kinds of things that families buy, they've increased tremendously. And when you look at something like lumber, that in the summertime, when people think about building, it's up like 87, 88%. So I would say for your folks to kind of keep their eyes out for these, the inflation, the increase in prices, the shortages that are happening nationally, and talk about it. Talk about it on social media, talk about it online, let people know what's actually happening in the places they reside. This is a national issue. It just happens to be we're talking today about my district in Indiana, but the whole country is looking at this. Oppressive regulations and tax increases from the Biden administration is going to collapse this economy that we had just 6 months ago.
No, I think that's a great point. And inflation is a tax increase on the poor, like most tax increases. And I think having that sound economic policy and being able to give individuals their own opportunity is the way forward here. Congresswoman, is there anything else that you'd like to chat about before we wrap it up for the day?
Well, the other thing I want to bring up real quick, Ryan, is the fraud that's in the unemployment system. So I'm also involved on that on the Ways and Means Committee. This will go down in history as the biggest ripoff of taxpayers' dollars is the fraud in this unemployment. So I dropped a bill just in the last few weeks, and it basically does three things. It safeguards on the front end identity verification to prevent fraud before it occurs. It strengthens efforts to actually catch these criminals, Ryan, which is really important to get those funds back. And it allows protections for taxpayers and victims of identity theft, and ensures that victims aren't penalized by the IRS. But I did another one of these national hearings, and I brought my Ways and Means members together. We brought somebody in from our districts, and I'm telling you what, this is close to a $200 billion scheme where people are literally listed as unemployment and that they're receiving, and it's going to some hacker, some domestic terrorist, someplace that's absconding with money. This is a really big issue. And again, $200 billion, Democrats will not, they refuse to put parameters on this unemployment, and they let these fraudsters break in and get this information. And guess where this is all going to land? On the back of the taxpayers and the victims that are being victimized right now. So I'm encouraging our friends across the aisle and the President Biden, take a look at our bill, put parameters on this and stop the theft, or this will go down as a giant ripoff that are going to will cost every taxpayer in this country.
No, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a part of this that a lot of people are overlooking. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend some time with us and talk about some of the egregiousness that's going on in Washington, D.C. Again, if you'd like to be involved with our effort, text WASTE to 46262. Follow us on Facebook. We have Facebook Lives literally booked out for the next couple months. So your representative may be next. I think tomorrow we're chatting with Senator Braun, also from Indiana. So looking forward to that. But thank you so much for your time today. Thanks everyone for watching. My name is Ryan Black with Americans for Prosperity.
Thanks, Ryan.